The city was alive with the sounds of Christmas. The streets decorated with twinkling lights and the scent of roasting chestnuts filling the cold air. People hurried past, bags in their hands, smiles on their faces, and holiday music spilling from every store window. But in the middle of it all, on the cold stone steps of an old building, sat a young boy, no older than 12. His clothes were worn, patched in places, and his shoes had holes where his toes peeked through. A small, battered keyboard rested on his lap, and he played with a focus that made the bustling city around him fade into the background. The music was strange and beautiful at the same time. It wasn't polished like the tunes blaring from the speakers of the nearby shops, but it carried a depth of feeling that made people stop, if only for a moment. Some threw a few coins into the open case at his feet and moved on, not fully understanding what they had heard. Others glanced, smiled politely, and hurried past, afraid to linger in the cold for too long. Among the crowd, a man in a perfectly tailored coat walked briskly. He had an air of confidence, almost arrogance, and wore shoes that shone even under the dull city lights. He had no interest in the boy at first, focused on getting to a meeting that promised him more profit and status. But as he passed the boy, the music reached him. He paused for a second and let out a small, sharp laugh. The tune sounded awkward to his ears, uneven and unrefined. The idea of someone so ragged trying to play music amused him. He shook his head and started to walk away, chuckling under his breath. The boy didn't notice the laughter. His eyes were closed, his small fingers flying over the keys, producing melodies that seemed too advanced for someone without proper lessons. The notes carried sadness and hope, longing and joy, sometimes all at once. Passers-by who stopped could feel it, though they couldn't always explain why it affected them so strongly. It was as if the boy was speaking directly to their hearts, using music instead of words. The man slowed his steps despite himself. There was something about the melody that didn't match the boy's appearance. He looked down at the small hands moving over the keys, noticing the precision, the natural flow of the notes. It was like the music had a life of its own, spilling out of the boy as if it had always belonged to him. The man's laughter faded into silence, replaced by a strange feeling he couldn't quite name. Curiosity began to nibble at his mind. For a moment, he considered leaving, telling himself he had no time to waste on street performers. But something in the boy's music held him there. The boy's expression was serene, almost spiritual, as if nothing in the world mattered except the music he created. People walked by without noticing, yet the man couldn't tear his eyes away. The raw emotion in every chord and every note made him question the snap judgments he had made. Other people began to notice too. A woman stopped to listen, her grocery bags slipping from her hands. A man in a business suit lingered, his briefcase forgotten by his side. The boy's music seemed to pause the city itself, creating a small bubble where only the sound of his playing existed. Even the distant honking of cars and chatter of people faded, as if the city had taken a breath to listen. The man watched the boy for a long time. He noticed the way the boy's small frame moved with confidence, the way his fingers danced across the keys like they were extensions of his own body. Each note seemed deliberate, carrying a story he could almost understand but couldn't put into words. Despite the boy's rough clothing and tired eyes, there was a dignity in his performance that the man couldn't ignore. It was rare to see such talent, untrained but undeniable. The boy stopped playing briefly and opened his eyes. He looked up and saw a few people watching him, including the man who had laughed at first. He felt a twinge of unease, expecting to be mocked again, but the man's expression had changed. There was no more laughter, only interest and perhaps a hint of admiration. The boy smiled faintly and began playing again, even more carefully this time, as if he could sense the importance of the moment. A few coins clinked into his case, small gestures of recognition from strangers who didn't know the story behind the music but felt its power. The boy's smile grew, a little more confident with each coin that landed. His music didn't change. It didn't try to please anyone. It was honest and true, coming straight from his heart. That honesty was what drew people in, and even the man in the fine coat found himself lingering longer than he intended. He realized he had misjudged the boy at first. Laughter had come too quickly, an instinctive reaction to appearances rather than substance. Now, standing there in the cold, he felt a mix of guilt and fascination. The boy was more than a street performer. He was a natural, someone whose talent shone through circumstance and hardship. The man couldn't recall ever seeing anything like it, even in the most elite concert halls he frequented. The boy's eyes sparkled with the joy of creation, unaware of the scrutiny he was under. He played for the music itself, for the way the notes could tell a story words could not. Each chord carried memories of better times, dreams he hoped for, and struggles he endured. The music was his voice, and though he had no audience in the traditional sense, everyone who stopped to listen became part of his world, even if only for a few moments. The man in the coat reached into his pocket and tossed a few coins into the boy's case. It was a small gesture, almost automatic, but the boy looked up and caught his eye, offering a shy smile of thanks. There was a connection in that brief exchange, an acknowledgement that transcended words. For the first time that evening, the man felt a pang of something he hadn't expected, empathy. He continued to watch, standing just out of reach, not wanting to interrupt the boy's focus. The city carried on around them, oblivious to the small miracle happening on the steps of the old building. People hurried home for dinner, children tugged at their parents' hands, and cars streamed past. But for the man and the boy, time seemed to slow. The music wrapped around them, invisible yet powerful, binding two strangers in a shared, unspoken understanding. As the boy played the final notes of a complex, flowing melody, he looked up again, sensing the man's lingering presence. Their eyes met for a moment, and the man nodded subtly, a silent acknowledgement of the talent he had almost missed. The boy's smile was quiet but genuine, a mixture of pride and relief. He had shared his music with the world, even if only a little, and someone had noticed in a way that mattered. The man turned to leave, but the music lingered in his mind, echoing in ways that words never could. For the first time in a long time, he felt something uncalculated, something real. The boy had reminded him, in the simplest and purest way, that talent and beauty often come from the most unexpected places. Even in a world obsessed with appearances and wealth, there were moments of true artistry that could not be ignored or dismissed. As he walked away, the man made a quiet promise to himself, though he didn't yet know how he would fulfill it. He would return, he realized, not just to hear the music but to understand the boy behind it. There was a story here, one that demanded attention, and he felt a stirring sense of responsibility to witness it, perhaps even to help in some small way. The boy, unaware of the thoughts swirling around him, continued to play, lost in a world of melody, weaving a tale only he could tell. And in that cold, crowded city, amidst the holiday rush and glittering lights, a simple act of music and a shared human moment had begun to change two lives forever. The next morning, the city was busy again, full of people moving quickly, bundled against the cold. Snow had lightly dusted the sidewalks, and the holiday decorations sparkled in the sunlight. The boy found his usual spot on the steps and carefully set up his keyboard. His fingers itched to play, and his heart felt light despite the chill. Music had always been his escape, and the moment he touched the keys, the city seemed to fade away. Not long after, the man in the coat appeared. He had not forgotten the boy from the previous evening. In fact, the memory of the boy's hands, the way the music had flowed from them so naturally, had lingered all night. He found himself thinking about the talent he had almost mocked, feeling a mix of curiosity and regret. Today, he wanted to listen without judgment, to see the boy's skill clearly. The boy noticed the man standing quietly at a distance but did not let it distract him. He started to play a simple tune, letting it build gradually. The notes were soft at first, gentle and hesitant, then grew stronger, flowing freely. People passing by began to slow down, some stopping to watch. The music drew them in like a magnet, subtle yet impossible to ignore. Even in the crowded city, it created a space of calm. The man watched closely, his expression serious now. He could see the boy's technique, the way his fingers curved, the way he anticipated each note. There was no hesitation, no wasted movement. Every chord was deliberate, every melody carefully constructed in the moment. The boy's music had a natural depth, a feeling of understanding that went beyond lessons or theory. It was as though the boy had learned from life itself, every hardship and joy reflected in the notes he played. The passers-by who stopped began to feel it too. One woman closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her, tears forming without her realizing it. An older man nodded slowly, remembering his own childhood dreams. Even a group of teenagers on their way to a nearby cafe found themselves listening longer than they had intended, fascinated by the boy's raw talent. The music reached them in ways words could not. The boy switched to a more complex melody, his hands moving faster and more confidently. It was as though he was telling a story, each note carrying emotion. Joy, sorrow, hope, and longing intertwined seamlessly, creating a tapestry that no one could ignore. The man in the coat felt a lump in his throat, an unfamiliar sensation. He had seen many performances in grand halls and listened to trained musicians, but nothing had ever moved him like this. It was pure, untouched by fame or expectation. He realized that his laughter from the day before had been hasty, unfair. The boy's appearance had made him judge too quickly, forgetting that talent often hides in unexpected places. He had expected street music to be simple or entertaining at best, but this boy's playing had depth, creativity, and heart. It was impossible to dismiss. For the boy, the audience didn't matter. He was lost in his music, fully present with each note, feeling the vibrations through his small fingers. He played with passion and precision, unaware of the technical brilliance in his own performance. This was natural talent, raw and untrained, yet it carried a level of sophistication that amazed those who listened closely. Even the man, who had lived a life surrounded by wealth and refinement, felt humbled. At one point, the boy paused, noticing a few coins in his case from people who had been moved by his music. He smiled briefly and continued, encouraged by the small gestures. The man reached into his pocket and dropped a few coins as well, his way of saying he recognized something exceptional. It was more than just money. It was an acknowledgement, a silent apology for his laughter, and an expression of respect for the boy's gift. The boy finished the piece, letting the last note linger in the crisp morning air. A hush fell over the small crowd that had gathered, followed by soft claps and murmurs of appreciation. The boy looked around, his eyes bright with satisfaction. He didn't perform for praise, but the acknowledgement felt good, a rare warmth that lifted his spirits. The man nodded to him, a subtle gesture of admiration, and the boy returned the nod shyly. After a short break, the boy started another melody, this one more intricate and emotional. The man stayed longer, captivated, and even leaned closer to observe the technique. He could see the creativity in how the boy combined chords and melodies, improvising in a way that spoke of intelligence and intuition. This was not just talent, it was genius in its earliest form, untouched by formal education or training. People continued to stop, drawn by the music. Conversations hushed, and some stayed for the entire piece mesmerized. It wasn't often that street performances could hold attention like this, but the boy's music had a magnetic pull. Every note seemed to reach into the hearts of those who listened, making them feel something powerful yet difficult to describe. Even the man, used to being unimpressed by most things, felt completely absorbed. When the boy finished the second piece, he closed his eyes briefly, breathing heavily. His energy was raw, but his passion undiminished. The man approached slowly this time, his curiosity overwhelming any hesitation. He knelt down to the boy's level and spoke gently. "You have an incredible gift," he said. The boy looked up, startled at first, unsure if he should trust the stranger. The man smiled kindly, making no sudden moves. "I've never seen anyone play like you before." The boy's fingers hovered over the keys, unsure whether to respond. He was used to people ignoring him or offering small coins and hurried thanks. This was different. The man seemed genuine, not condescending or distracted by something else. The boy finally nodded, a small, shy smile forming. He had always believed in his music, but hearing it recognized in words felt new and comforting. The man continued, asking simple questions about the boy's experience with music. The boy explained that he had no formal training, that he learned by listening to music on old radios and experimenting with whatever instruments he could find. His family had fallen on hard times, leaving him to fend for himself, and music became his companion and solace. Each song he played carried memories, hopes, and dreams he couldn't express in any other way. The man listened intently, absorbing every detail. He felt a responsibility awakening inside him, a desire to support this boy in ways he could. The talent was undeniable, and he realized it would be a tragedy if it went unrecognized or untapped. For the first time in a long time, he wanted to be more than a bystander, more than a wealthy man passing through life unconcerned. He wanted to make a difference. The boy, sensing the sincerity, felt a cautious optimism. Most people didn't see past his appearance. They didn't notice the skill or the heart in his music. Yet this man had paused, listened, and acknowledged him as an artist, not just a street performer. That recognition sparked a new feeling of hope, something he hadn't felt in a long time. As the morning sun climbed higher, the city's energy returned. People resumed their routines, holiday shoppers continued their errands, and the boy packed up his keyboard. The man lingered, unwilling to leave just yet. He wanted to witness more, to understand the boy's world, and perhaps find a way to nurture the incredible gift he had discovered. Before parting, the man made another small gesture, slipping a note with his name and number into the boy's case. He didn't make promises or demands, only offered a way to connect if the boy ever wanted to. The boy looked at the note, a mixture of curiosity and cautious hope in his eyes. He understood that this encounter could be the start of something different, something life-changing. They parted that morning with a silent understanding. The boy returned to his corner of the city, still a child of the streets, but carrying with him the knowledge that someone had truly seen his talent. The man walked away, his mind buzzing with possibilities, a sense of purpose stirring where before there had only been routine and business. Both had been touched in a small but profound way, and the memory of that morning would linger for them long after the snow melted and the holiday decorations were taken down. The city moved on around them, unaware of the quiet miracle that had occurred on its steps. The boy's music, however, had left a mark on everyone who stopped to listen, and the man knew that he had found someone extraordinary. It was the beginning of a journey neither of them could yet imagine, a story that would unfold in unexpected ways, rooted in talent, human connection, and the power of recognition. The days following their first real conversation felt different for both the boy and the man. The boy returned each morning to his usual spot, his keyboard worn but cherished, and the city continued its busy hum around him. Yet he felt a small sense of anticipation, a quiet excitement that he couldn't quite name. It had to do with the man in the coat, the one who had stopped and listened without judgment, who had acknowledged his music as something special. The man, meanwhile, found himself thinking about the boy constantly. In his office, in his meetings, in quiet moments while driving through the city. He remembered the tiny hands flying over the keys, the melodies that carried so much emotion. He felt a responsibility stirring within him, a need to see where this raw talent could go. He knew that what he had witnessed on those cold city steps was rare and extraordinary, and he couldn't ignore it. There was a part of him that wished he could see the boy in a different environment, one where he could truly flourish. On this particular morning, the boy started playing a melody that was lighter and more joyful than usual. The snow had melted slightly, leaving patches of sunlight on the sidewalks, and the city felt warmer despite the chill in the air. The music reflected the boy's mood, a cautious optimism that began to peek through the hardships of his life. People paused, as usual, some tossing coins into the open case, some listening silently. The boy's fingers danced over the keys with precision and grace, improvising notes that seemed to flow effortlessly from his imagination. The man stood at a distance, observing quietly, noting the improvement in the boy's skill and the confidence in his posture. There was a natural ease to the way he played, as if the keyboard was an extension of himself. Every chord and rhythm carried purpose, and the improvisation showed a depth of understanding that could only come from innate talent. The man felt a growing admiration, mixed with a sense of urgency. He wanted to help the boy, to provide opportunities that would allow his music to reach beyond the street corners of the city. As the boy played, a small crowd began to gather again, drawn by the magnetic energy of the music. The notes seemed to paint pictures in the minds of the listeners, telling stories without words. Children stopped in their tracks, parents looked on with curiosity, and even people who usually hurried past street performers lingered. The boy didn't notice the crowd. He played for himself and the music, yet the effect he had on others was undeniable. The man decided to step closer this time, approaching carefully so as not to startle the boy. He didn't interrupt, only watched and listened, letting the music wash over him. There was something raw and honest about the way the boy played. It was free from expectation, free from the pressure of competition or praise. This was pure expression, a reflection of the boy's soul, and the man realized that this was what made it so powerful. When the boy finished the piece, he glanced around and saw the man a few feet away, watching intently. The man gave a subtle nod, a silent gesture of respect and encouragement. The boy felt a mixture of pride and nervousness, wondering what the stranger truly thought of his music. Unlike before, the man's presence didn't feel intimidating or critical. It felt supportive, almost protective. After a pause, the boy began to play again, this time experimenting with a more complex composition. The notes twisted and turned, sometimes gentle, sometimes bold, carrying a range of emotions that seemed impossible for someone so young. The man's curiosity grew with each passing moment. He could see the boy's potential clearly now, the kind of skill that, if nurtured, could transform into greatness. He knew that talent like this was rare and that it needed guidance and encouragement to flourish. The crowd around them grew larger, drawn by the intricate music that filled the street. Some people stood with their mouths slightly open, astonished by the sophistication of the melodies. Others whispered to each other, speculating about the boy's background and wondering how someone so young could play so well. Despite the attention, the boy remained focused, his eyes half closed, lost in the rhythm and emotion of the music. Each note seemed to carry a piece of his story, a glimpse into his life and the struggles he had endured. The man could feel a deep sense of connection forming, not just with the boy's music, but with the boy himself. He wanted to know more about the child behind the melodies, about the experiences that had shaped him and given him such profound insight into sound and feeling. He felt an urge to reach out, to offer support in a way that went beyond coins and kind words. There was potential here that could not be ignored. Finally, the boy ended the piece with a flourish, the last note lingering in the air like a soft echo. The crowd responded with a mixture of claps and murmurs, some people looking genuinely moved. The boy smiled faintly, a quiet satisfaction in his expression. He packed up his keyboard slowly, aware that the man was still standing nearby, waiting. The man approached, this time with a gentle smile and a few words. "You have something truly remarkable," he said. "I've never seen anyone play like that before. You have a natural gift, and it deserves to be shared with the world." The boy looked up, startled by the sincerity in the man's voice. He wasn't used to people recognizing his talent in such a personal way. Most often, people either ignored him or tossed a few coins and walked away. This was different. The man wasn't just observing. He was acknowledging the boy's ability and potential. The boy nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. He had always believed in his music, but hearing it recognized aloud by someone who seemed to understand made a profound impact. The man continued to speak, asking about how the boy had learned to play, about the sources of his inspiration, and about the challenges he faced. The boy answered honestly, sharing bits of his life, the hardships of being alone, and the solace he found in music. He spoke quietly, not used to opening up to strangers, but the man's calm and genuine demeanor made it easier. The man listened intently, absorbing every detail. He began to see a plan forming in his mind. This boy's talent could not remain confined to street corners. It needed an opportunity to grow, to be refined and nurtured. The man had resources, connections, and experience, and he felt a responsibility to use them to help someone as gifted as this. He wanted to offer guidance, mentorship, and the chance for the boy to explore his abilities fully. Before leaving, the man made a small gesture, placing a note with his contact information into the boy's case. "If you ever want to learn more, or if you want help, find me," he said softly. The boy looked at the note, a mixture of curiosity, hope, and caution in his eyes. He didn't fully understand what the future held, but he knew that this encounter could be the beginning of something important. He tucked the note carefully into his pocket, a small treasure. As the man walked away, he felt a sense of anticipation, a spark of purpose that had been missing from his life. He realized that the boy's music had touched him in ways that wealth, power, and status never had. For the first time, he felt a genuine connection to something meaningful, something pure and uncorrupted. He knew he would return, not just to listen, but to see how he could help shape the boy's future. The boy sat quietly for a moment after the man left, reflecting on the interaction. There was a sense of possibility now, a feeling that someone had seen his talent and believed in it. It was a rare and powerful experience, one that filled him with a cautious optimism. Music had always been his refuge, but now it also felt like a bridge, a way to connect with someone who truly understood him. The city moved on around him, but he felt a quiet certainty that his life could change, that his music might finally reach beyond the streets. As the day wore on, the boy played for passers-by, each note carrying a mixture of hope and determination. He felt inspired to push himself, to explore melodies he hadn't dared to try before. The presence of the man, even at a distance, had sparked something within him. He imagined what it might be like to perform in a proper space, to be guided and encouraged, to share his music with people who could truly appreciate it. The thought energized him, making his fingers move faster and more confidently across the keys. The city's hustle continued, oblivious to the small moments of transformation happening on the steps of the old building. Yet in the hearts of the boy and the man, something profound had begun. A connection had been formed, based on respect, talent, and the power of recognition. Both were changed, subtly but deeply, by the encounter and the realization that extraordinary things could emerge from the most unexpected places. By the time the boy packed up his keyboard for the day, the sun had moved higher, casting a warm glow over the streets. He held the man's note tightly in his hand, feeling a sense of promise and possibility. The man had given him more than a chance to be noticed. He had given him hope, a spark that could ignite the next chapter of his life. As he walked away from the steps, he felt a quiet determination to keep playing, to keep expressing himself, and to be ready for whatever opportunities might come. The man walked through the bustling streets, replaying the boy's music in his mind. Each note, each melody, lingered, reminding him of the potential he had witnessed. He knew this was only the beginning and that both of their lives were about to change in ways they could not yet imagine. The music had created a bridge between them, and that bridge would grow stronger as the boy's talent was nurtured and encouraged. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, both felt a shared sense of hope and excitement, a belief that something extraordinary was unfolding before their eyes. The man returned the next morning with a sense of purpose. He carried no grand gestures, no gifts or promises, only a genuine interest in helping the boy develop his talent. The city streets were still alive with the sound of holiday preparations, but the man's focus was entirely on the small figure at the steps, hunched over the keyboard with determination in his eyes. He watched for a few moments, letting the boy play, and could see the same effortless skill and deep emotion that had captivated him from the start. This time, the man stepped closer, keeping his voice low and friendly. "I wanted to ask if you'd like to learn more about music, in a place where you can practice and explore your skills without worrying about the cold or the streets." The boy froze, unsure what to make of the offer. It was not often that strangers offered him opportunities, and he had learned to be cautious. He looked up, studying the man carefully, searching for sincerity. I don't have lessons before," the boy said softly, almost in a whisper. "I just play." His fingers hovered above the keys, nervous but ready to respond. He had always dreamed of learning more, but it seemed impossible for someone in his situation. The man nodded, understanding the hesitation, and smiled gently. "You don't need to know anything yet. We'll start from the beginning, step by step. I just want to help you explore your gift." The boy's eyes widened slightly. No one had ever offered him guidance like this before. Most people either ignored him, mocked him, or tossed coins and walked away. This was different. There was no judgment, only recognition and encouragement. Slowly, he nodded, a mixture of hope and caution in his expression. It was the first time he allowed himself to believe that his music could mean more than just a way to pass time or earn a few coins. The man led the boy to a small music studio he had arranged nearby. It was modest but filled with instruments, keyboards, and sheet music, a place where talent could be nurtured. The boy's eyes lit up at the sight of it, and he could hardly believe he was allowed inside. He approached a piano in the corner and tentatively pressed a key. The sound rang out clear and strong, and he smiled, feeling a thrill of excitement he had rarely experienced before. Over the next few weeks, the man spent time mentoring the boy. They worked together on basic techniques, scales, and exercises, but also allowed the boy to explore his natural instincts and creativity. The man never pushed too hard. He understood the importance of letting the boy develop at his own pace, to honor the music that flowed naturally from him. Slowly, the boy's confidence grew, and with it, his skills expanded. He began to understand theory, composition, and the possibilities of different instruments, all while retaining the raw emotion that made his music unique. The boy's progress was remarkable. He had always been a natural, but now, with guidance and encouragement, his talent blossomed even further. He experimented with different styles, blending melodies in ways that were innovative and captivating. The man watched in awe, realizing that this child had a rare gift, one that could inspire others and even change lives if given the right opportunities. Each day, the boy's music became richer, more complex, yet still heartfelt and genuine. The relationship between the boy and the man grew stronger as well. It was not just about music. It became a bond of trust and understanding. The boy felt safe sharing his thoughts, his dreams, and even his fears. He spoke of his family, the struggles he had endured, and the times when he had felt invisible to the world. The man listened patiently, offering guidance and reassurance, becoming a mentor, a supporter, and in some ways a friend. The boy began to see that his talent was not just a personal refuge, but a bridge to connect with others and find hope in difficult circumstances. The city outside continued to bustle, but the studio became a sanctuary. People passed by, unaware of the quiet transformation happening outside. The boy practiced relentlessly, each day exploring new ideas and pushing the boundaries of his abilities. The man encouraged him to perform occasionally, small recitals for a limited audience of trusted friends and mentors, to help him build confidence and stage presence. The boy's natural virtuosity shone through every time, earning admiration and respect from those who heard him. One day, the man suggested that they record some of the boy's compositions. The boy was nervous at first, unaccustomed to the idea of sharing his music with a larger audience, but he trusted the man. As he played, the camera captured not just his skill, but the emotion and authenticity that defined his style. The recordings became a portfolio, a way to showcase the boy's talent to people who could offer further opportunities, scholarships, and support. It was a small step, but an important one, bridging the gap between street performance and professional music. As the weeks turned into months, the boy's reputation quietly began to grow. Teachers, musicians, and other mentors who heard the recordings were amazed by his innate ability, his creativity, and the depth of feeling in his music. The man guided him carefully, introducing him to people who could help, always mindful to protect the boy's confidence and ensure he remained true to himself. The boy was learning not just music, but how to navigate a world that had once seemed impossible to him, a world filled with opportunities that he had never imagined. The boy also grew personally, becoming more confident and self-assured. He began to interact more openly with others, sharing his ideas, asking questions, and exploring new experiences. The man encouraged him to read, learn about different composers and styles, and to develop a broader understanding of music and life. The boy's creativity flourished, and he began to compose his own pieces, inspired by his journey, his emotions, and the world around him. Each composition carried a story, a piece of his life, and the lessons he had learned from both hardship and support. The man marveled at the transformation, realizing that the boy's potential had always been extraordinary, but now it was being guided and nurtured in a way that could lead to something remarkable. He reflected on the first time he had laughed at the boy on the streets, feeling a mix of humility and gratitude. That laughter had been a mistake, but it had led him to recognize the boy's talent and ultimately change the trajectory of his life. It was a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can have the greatest impact. One evening, after a long day of practice, the boy and the man sat quietly in the studio. The boy looked at his hands on the keyboard, remembering the first time he had played on the cold steps outside. He realized how far he had come, not just in skill, but in confidence, understanding, and hope. The man watched him, proud of the boy's growth, and spoke softly. "You've worked so hard, and your music has grown in ways I could never have imagined. Remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more for you to explore." The boy nodded, a mixture of gratitude and determination in his eyes. He understood that the journey ahead would not always be easy, but he now had guidance, support, and belief in himself. The city outside might still be unaware of the incredible talent growing within the walls of the studio, but the boy knew that one day, his music would reach further than he had ever dreamed. And with the man's mentorship, he felt ready to take that next step, wherever it might lead. As night fell, the boy packed up his keyboard and looked out at the city lights, reflecting on the journey from the cold street steps to this warm, encouraging space. He felt a quiet sense of purpose, a determination to continue learning, playing, and sharing his gift. The man walked him home briefly, ensuring he was safe and comfortable, and reminded him that they would continue to work together, explore new ideas, and take the next steps in his musical journey. The boy went to sleep that night with a sense of hope and excitement he had never known before. Music had always been his companion, his escape, and now it had become a path forward, a bridge to a future filled with possibility. The man, meanwhile, returned to his own world, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose. Both knew that this was only the beginning, and that together, they were shaping a story that could inspire, transform, and leave a lasting impact on the boy's life and the world around him. The city was alive with excitement as the holiday season drew closer to its peak. Decorations glimmered on every corner, and the sounds of carolers and holiday music filled the streets. But inside a small music studio, the boy sat at a grand piano, his fingers moving swiftly across the keys. He had come a long way from the cold stone steps where he once played for coins. Now, his music was refined yet still carried the emotion and passion that had always been his signature. The man in the coat stood nearby, listening quietly, proud of the journey that had brought them here. Today was special. The boy was about to perform in a small concert hall for the first time. It was not a grand stage with a huge audience, but it was a step into a new world, a place where people would come to hear him for his talent rather than feel pity for his circumstances. The man had arranged everything carefully, ensuring that the boy felt comfortable and ready. This performance was a chance to show the boy how far he had come and to share his gift with others who could truly appreciate it. As the boy warmed up, he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. His hands hovered over the keys, remembering the early days on the streets, the long hours of practice, and the guidance that had shaped his skill. He had learned to trust himself, to play with confidence, and to let the music speak without fear. The man approached him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You're ready," he said. "Just play from your heart, and everything else will follow." The boy nodded, feeling a calm resolve wash over him. The hall slowly filled with people, their chatter quieting as the lights dimmed. Friends, mentors, and music enthusiasts had gathered, curious to witness the talent they had heard so much about. The boy took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage, the grand piano waiting for him. The first note rang out, clear and strong, capturing the audience's attention immediately. Each note told a story, a reflection of the boy's life, his struggles, and his hopes. The audience listened, enraptured. As the boy's music filled the room with emotion and beauty, he played piece after piece, each one more intricate and expressive than the last. His fingers moved effortlessly, yet every note carried intention and feeling. The hall was silent except for the piano, the music weaving a tapestry of joy, sorrow, hope, and triumph. The audience felt each emotion as if it were their own, moved by the authenticity and depth of the performance. The boy's journey from street performer to stage musician was evident in every chord, every melody, every pause filled with meaning. The man watched with pride, remembering the first time he had laughed at the boys playing on the cold city steps. How far they had come, he thought, and how unexpected life could be when talent met opportunity and care. He realized that the boy's music had not only transformed his life but had also touched his own in ways that wealth and comfort never had. This was a rare gift, and he felt honored to have played a part in nurturing it. After the performance, the audience erupted into applause, their admiration and appreciation filling the hall. The boy stood, slightly overwhelmed but beaming with joy, acknowledging the crowd with a shy smile. The man stepped forward, shaking his hand, pride evident in his eyes. "You did wonderfully," he said. "This is just the beginning." The boy nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment and possibility. He had come a long way, and yet he knew there was so much more to explore, more music to create, more hearts to touch. The boy's life began to change in other ways as well. Invitations to perform, opportunities to collaborate, and recognition from musicians and educators arrived gradually. He was still humble, still focused on the music itself, but he now had a platform and a community that supported him. The man continued to guide him, providing mentorship and encouragement, always emphasizing the importance of staying true to himself and his emotions. Together, they navigated this new world carefully, ensuring that the boy's talent remained authentic and heartfelt. Back in the studio, the boy continued to practice and compose. He experimented with new sounds, blending traditional and contemporary styles, and exploring rhythms and harmonies he had never considered before. His compositions became more complex and expressive, yet always maintained the emotional honesty that had made his music resonate from the very beginning. The man watched him grow, fascinated by the boy's ability to innovate while staying connected to his roots. The boy also became more confident in everyday life. He interacted with peers and adults with ease, expressing himself openly and embracing the opportunities that had once seemed impossible. He spoke about his music, his dreams, and his experiences, inspiring others who heard his story. Despite the challenges he had faced, he retained a humility and kindness that endeared him to everyone around him. His journey was a testament to resilience, talent, and the transformative power of recognition and support. One day, the man suggested they organize a community concert, a place where the boy could perform for a wider audience, including people from neighborhoods like the one he had grown up in. The boy agreed eagerly, excited to share his music with those who might never have the chance to hear it otherwise. They worked together to plan the event, coordinating with local musicians and volunteers. The day of the concert arrived, and the hall was filled with people of all ages, curious and eager to experience the boy's music. When he played, the energy in the room was palpable. Each note, each melody, connected with the audience, evoking emotions and memories, sparking smiles and tears alike. People who had known him from the streets watched with pride and amazement, seeing how far he had come. The boy's music became a bridge, connecting communities and hearts in a shared experience of beauty and emotion. The man watched quietly, knowing that this moment was a culmination of countless small steps, patience, and dedication. After the concert, the boy and the man walked through the quiet streets, reflecting on the journey. "You've changed so much," the man said, "not just as a musician but as a person, and your music will continue to touch lives in ways you can't even imagine." The boy nodded, feeling gratitude for the guidance, support, and trust that had allowed him to grow. He understood that his journey was ongoing, but he no longer felt alone or limited by circumstance. As the holiday season reached its peak, the boy continued to play and compose, performing in various venues, recording his music, and inspiring others. The man remained by his side, offering mentorship and encouragement, but allowing the boy's talent to shine independently. Their relationship evolved into one of mutual respect and admiration, a partnership rooted in trust, talent, and shared experiences. Together, they had turned a chance encounter on cold city steps into a story of transformation, hope, and opportunity. The boy's story became known not just for his talent, but for the journey that brought him to this point. People spoke of the young virtuoso who had once played on the streets, who had captured hearts with his music, and who now shared his gift with the world. The man, once a stranger who had laughed at his music, had become a mentor and guide, demonstrating the profound impact of recognition and support. The boy's life was a testament to the power of persistence, passion, and the belief that talent, when nurtured, could change not just one life, but many. In the quiet moments, after the applause and excitement, the boy often returned to the piano alone, exploring new melodies and creating music that reflected his emotions and experiences. He thought of the city streets where it had all begun, and of the man who had seen him when no one else had. Every note he played was a reminder of the journey, of the struggles overcome, and the possibilities ahead. The music was not just sound. It was life, a story unfolding, and a promise of what was yet to come. As the seasons changed, the boy continued to grow in skill, confidence, and artistry. His performances touched hearts far and wide, but he never forgot the path that had brought him there. The man remained a steady presence, offering guidance and wisdom, but always letting the boy's natural talent and creativity lead the way. Together, they had shown that with recognition, encouragement, and opportunity, extraordinary things could happen. The boy's journey from cold city steps to stages and hearts around the world was a testament to resilience, talent, and the transformative power of believing in someone when they are seen for who they truly are.